Well, that's why the alternative platform is so important. I want to take you to one story that has evolved since the last time we talked. Obviously, the Capitol tragedy is shaking everyone. It's a horrible thing. There are a lot of people that are culpable for it. But the idea that the president's rhetoric incited it now increasingly falls apart when you look at these indictments and what the FBI has been saying in the courts. The pipe bombs were planted a night in advance. The Proud Boys and others were coordinating the attacks and planning them as far back as November, certainly December, certainly January 1st. There's lots of communications talking about a plan and many other elements. When you look back at that now as someone who watched the impeachment go by with almost no evidentiary support, no opportunity to evaluate the evidence, what should the American people take from the storyline that now that it's evolved so much?
Well, look, what I want to know in all of this is, okay, somebody should be able to get me an estimate. There's plenty of cameras. How many people went into the Capitol?
Right.
Okay. We still don't have that number.
We don't.
I'm just guessing. I mean, I was there. I mean, I watched it, watched all the footage and,
right.
At least live like other Americans did. I'm guessing there was somewhere between 500 and 2,000 people that went into the Capitol that day. Well, when you're doing an investigation, you want to know, okay, let's assess first how many people went in.
Right.
I don't have that number. 500 to 2,500 is not a
3
number.
weeks away.
Right? That's an educated guess by me watching television.
Right.
So somebody should be able to get within a few dozen how many actual people went into the Capitol that day. Secondly, you did want to know who were the people that actually broke the windows and did the damage that busted through. Those people need to be prosecuted immediately, right? And find those out. And we should know that there should be a list of these people. I mean, it's kind of like the stories whenever there's somebody who's supposedly affiliated with Republicans, that gets promoted by the fake news and sent out across the media apparatus and the social media sphere and the World Wide Web out there, right? But then when you get somebody who's affiliated with the left that was in the Capitol that day,
right?
That
John
gets
Sullivan.
Buried.
Yeah, it does.
It's buried. Nobody knows. It's just a mystery.
John Sullivan.
So that's the type of stuff, kind of going back to what I talked about, going back at the beginning of our conversation here, that my constituents are saying, look, is this a joke? Look, we know what happened in the Capitol was bad. No, we don't condone any of that. I mean, we're the law and order party. But don't tell us, Devin, that if you're a left-winger, you don't get busted, you don't get written about. All the right-wingers get written about. And then don't think we're that stupid to know. We saw the protests in L.A. We saw cops get shot in broad daylight and assassinated in the head in Los Angeles.
Right.
We saw the burning buildings in Portland and Seattle. We saw New Country in Seattle. That's what happens when you actually get out and talk to the people. That's what they're saying. So all of this, like every step, the collapse of these institutions, somebody ought to just come out right now and say, at one of these institutions, whether it be FBI or DOJ, and say, stop, enough is enough, okay? We're going to get to all, there's 1,700 people or whatever the number is. We're going to find them all. We're going to put it all together. We're going to do an assessment. Until that time, Pelosi, Democrats, you're the ones responsible for your security. We gave you the intelligence. We had the intelligence ahead of time, John.
That's
Remember
right.
that there was going to be problems that day at the Capitol.
Yeah, they knew it was coming.
So that's what real leadership of these institutions, if they're truly nonpartisan, that's what they say to quiet the people down.
Yep.
They say, stop playing the politics. We're the FBI.
Give us
We're going to identify to the best degree we can. We're going to prosecute them all. We're going to relay this all to the American public. In the meantime, Pelosi, Democrats, don't accuse us of not giving you the intelligence. You're the ones who decided not to have additional help from the National Guard. You're the ones who decided, unprecedented, I must say, to not have proper fencing around the Capitol.
Right.
I've been around for several inaugurations now, John. I'm old enough to remember that every inauguration, you have multiple layers of fencing around that Capitol, and it takes months to put in place. It starts right after the election.
It does.
They begin building the parade route. They begin putting in the fencing. That didn't happen here. Okay, so that's what I expect a nonpartisan institution in this country to come out and say. That's how you build back trust with the man or woman on the street in places that are outside of the D.C. Beltway, Manhattan, or Hollywood, or San Francisco, or Seattle, or Chaz, whatever you'd like to call it.
Right. Let me ask you one last question. We know that the Capitol Police Board, which made up of the architects and the two sergeant-at-arms, voted not to take the extra National Guard 2 days before. Do you think that Nancy Pelosi is culpable for that decision? Do you think she was in the know about it?
Well, ultimately, she's responsible. Okay, whether or not
buck stops with her no matter
staff,
what.
Whether or not her staff or her sergeant of arms, she's the mayor of the Capitol. It's
right.
a big responsibility. I mean, that's why a lot of people don't want to have that job, or if they have the Speaker of the House, you don't last long in that job because it's a tough job.
It's a grueling job.
You're a babysitter, you're a mayor, you're managing police forces, you're doing all of these things. You're not mayor by I'm just being
people get what I mean.
You're mayor by kind of you have to run the complex.
You're running the community.
So it's a lot of responsibility. So if anybody was telling the truth, like I would say, if you go back in time, somebody would say she ought to be coming out and be pushed on these questions. Who in your office knew, and when did they know it?
Yep.
Did you know it? And she ought to be out there saying, "Look, here's what happened. We made a mistake. We collectively as the Capitol Hill, But look, I can tell you this: Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy didn't tell Pelosi or the Sergeant of Arms, "Hey, no fences, no National Guard."
Right.
I know what we would say is if we were given that intelligence and they came to us and said, "Hey, I'm a little worried about the security," okay, which, by the way, Capitol Police did come to me that morning and say that, okay,
right.
which was, 2 hours
before. 2 hours before, right.
They asked me if had I seen any of the intelligence, and I had just a little bit through the news and
right.
whatnot, because I only deal with foreign issues, and there was no foreign nexus at that point to the inauguration. But the Capitol Police were worried about this, right? I mean, so much so that they would come to me as the former chair of the House Intelligence Committee, top Republican,
yep.
say, "Hey, what's going on here?" And I said, "Gosh, it doesn't sound good." And but at that point I had no idea
right.
that they had asked for fencing, they had asked for additional guards.
Yeah.
And the leadership, so it's become a vacuum. Or it's a bottom. It's a nobody knows something happened, but nobody knows the truth. Why? Because the press that the Democrats own are not asking the questions that a real press would do. And then, of course, if you say anything about it, John, if you do report the facts, good luck, because
you're chagrined as supporting the violence. Yeah.
Well, you're right. You're not going to get. Facebook's going to take the post down. Yeah. Twitter, Instagram, you name it, they're going to take it all down. And then if a social media doesn't take it down, then Apple just deletes the app, so you can't even download the app.
Yeah.
Well, then if you try to go to a website, then what happens? Since Amazon owns a third of the servers in this country, they shut your servers down.
Yep.
And by the way, if you go to another server company, Amazon, who works with all the server companies, goes to them and says, if you give XYZ company, in this case I'm referring to Parler,
right.
The social media app that was deleted, they say, if you do any business, we're going to cut you off too.
Wow.
So this is unprecedented actions that are taking. So you ask what I'm going to do. All I can do right now is use the platform that my constituents have given me, that my colleagues in Congress give me as the top Republican on the Intelligence Committee, to go to places like your show and other outlets to give people the facts and give people the solutions. Which right now, the only solution is we have to get our communication system back up and going. Somehow we have to have a social media platform. Either one has to be built or the courts have to step in. Something has to happen here, and that's step one. You can't compete in the battle of ideas as elected officials if 99.9% of the information is crap and garbage, and you have no way to get your information out.
Yeah. That's fighting with both hands behind your back and your feet tied too. It's just crazy. Well, we're so grateful that you are talking to us and educating us. There's so much that we've learned today. Congressman, I want to thank you again, and we'll have you back on soon. I'm sure we're going to hear some new developments on the Russia case, not in the not so distant future, but thank you for all you do to inform our listeners and our readers at Just the News.
Well, thanks a lot, John. Thanks a lot for having me.
Have a good one, sir.